America's Industrial Revolution came of age in the late 1800s. This fundamental shift from handmade to machine-made production reshaped Americans' relationship to each other and to the rest of the world. The Industrial Revolution, furthermore, created new opportunities for many Americans, as well as fantastic wealth for a few, but it also created great challenges in the United States. The ability to create massive amounts of consumer goods at increasingly affordable prices certainly meant a materially more comfortable life for millions of Americans. On the other hand, the mountain of consumer goods that began to flow out of American factories in the last quarter of the 19th century also presented a problem. That is, who was going to buy all this stuff? Once consumers bought all that they were going to buy, once the demand for a particular good had been satisfied, what were factory owners to do? Cut production, lay off workers, and potentially trigger an economic depression? Of course not. One answer to the challenge of overproduction was the development of modern advertising, the increasingly sophisticated effort to convince American consumers to buy more stuff. Another way Americans tried to address the issue of overproduction was to find new markets, new consumers in foreign countries who were willing or could be convinced to buy American products. As the economist David Wells noted as early as 1882, the condition of oversupply is coming again, and coming in all probability to stay. The pressing necessity of the hour with us, therefore, is an extension of our markets for our produce, and in default thereof we are certain to be smothered in our own grease. Americans also sought to acquire cheap raw materials abroad. Foreign lands, furthermore, offered American investors potentially lucrative places to invest their money, in Cuban sugar plantations, for example. Other industrialized nations, mainly Western European, had come to the same conclusion. Western European nations had already colonized nearly the whole of the African continent by the late 1800s. Towards the end of the century, Western Europeans, the United States, and Japan increasingly looked to mainland East Asia, China in particular, as a place to sell their excess production, acquire cheap resources, and invest their excess capital. Americans also saw Latin America and the Caribbean as their own sphere of influence, and took decisive action in the early 1900s to keep European nations out of the Western Hemisphere. The American government wanted the region safe and stable for American investors.